Hey, what's up, everybody? Jeremy Donson here with E7 Music School. It's so good to see you all. Today, I'm going to be showing you the beginning section of What I Got by Sublime. Very excited to show this to you guys. Definitely requires a lot of timing and prep strokes, which I'm going to go over here with you. And if you like this video, please do be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions you may have. And just so you know, every video that I have on YouTube is going to have a corresponding full song breakdown video as well, available on our website, www.e7musicschool.com. So let's dive into this. So at the very beginning of this song, here's what you're going to do for the intro. So what I did there was bass, bass snare, bass end, bass bass. Notice it's very choppy. Now, in my experience, a lot of students are going to be very tempted to hit the hi-hat with those extra basses, right? They're going to be very, very tempted to do that and do the hi-hat with those basses. But you got to make sure that your hi-hat is the one consistent thing in this song, that it just never changes, right? Think of this like your metronome. Metronomes don't get off time, they stay the same. So always keep that in the back of your mind that your hi-hat is not changing here. It stays the same the entire time. Okay, so the beat that we're going to play is this again. Now let's break that down. So we're going to do bass with hi-hat first. So bass, bass snare, and that's bass by itself, snare and hi-hat together. So together it's bass, bass snare, right? Bass, bass snare. Now, if you're already used to having a lot of bass independence, in other words, where your bass hits by itself, then great. But a lot of drummers really struggle with that. So a helpful tip for that is if you're kicking a bass drum by itself, if you move away from the hi-hat as the bass hits, you're going to be less tempted to hit the hi-hat when you're not supposed to, comparably to keeping your hi-hat around here and being very tempted to hit with that bass drum. So if you just keep the rhythm here and practice going bass bass, bass bass, bass bass, bass bass, right? Just like that. Then that'll really be a good start for you. And once you can get used to not going bass bass like that, I see it all the time, very common, then now you got a good foundation to build on for that. So if you're already there, like I said, great, awesome. But if not, just practice getting that really smooth first. So like and bass bass, right? And bass bass, and bass bass. Notice my hi-hat goes up. My hi-hat hand goes up there. And it's just on rhythm like normal. But it helps to really slow it down and break that section down at first. Okay, so now we got bass, bass snare. That's the first part that we have there. So bass, bass snare, bass and bass bass. All right, so once you get that down, bass, bass snare, then what you're going to do is you're going to do a bass by itself. So we got bass, bass snare, then we're going to go bass and. So think of it like this. First, when we started with the bass and hi-hat, we went bass and hi-hat together, right? After that, we did bass snare, like so. This next thing we're going to do is instead of going bass snare, we're going to go bass and. That's the only difference. You just take the snare out. Bass and, right? And if it's helpful, we'll do it right-handed. So we got bass, bass snare, bass and, right? Bass, bass snare, bass and. Bass, bass snare, bass and, bass bass. That's the whole thing. The next part is bass bass again. Okay. All right. Now that is the overall beat for what we're going to do for most of the song. Most all of the song is that a type of variation of what that intro is, and then I'm going to show you right now what the meat of almost the whole song is, minus where the drags are. But that's really the beat that you're going to be doing the vast majority of the time for the song. All right, so now that we have that, let's go over a couple of technique things with our foot here. Okay, so anytime that you have a really choppy beat like this, it's really important to make sure that you're giving yourself enough time to kick the bass drum on time like you're supposed to. So if you watch my foot, it's like bass. I go up pretty quickly after I kick. So basically, as soon as I kick, I'm coming up with that prep stroke almost immediately after that. Now, the in section is, if you're not used to doing double kick with one foot, right, then I would suggest maybe doing it without that extra bass. Just go bass, bass, snare, bass, and bass, right? Bass, bass, snare, bass, and bass, instead of bass, bass, snare, bass, and bass, bass. So you could just take that extra bass out if that proves a little bit too difficult to do the double kick. If you need help with the double kick, let me know. Just reach out to me, jeremy@e7musicschool.com. Shoot me an email. I'd be happy to help go over that with you. All right, so now that we got the intro, let's go over the meat and potatoes here, the main beat of the song. Okay, so the main beat is this. 1, a 2, a 3, and 4 E, a 1, a 2, a 3, and 4 E, a 1, a 2, a 3, and 4 E, a 1. Now, in my experience, most drummers do not count or read music, tablature maybe, but in my experience, most drummers do not read or count music. That's totally fine. But for those of you who do, that's the counting of how to play this. Now, it's very similar to what the intro was that we did, but just to break it down, do it a little bit slowly here. Ready, go. Again, if the double kick proves to be too hard, just take it out. 1, a 2, 3, and 4 E. 1, a 2, 3, and 4 E. 1. And then you can always add it back in later, right? Okay, so let's break this down. So we got bass and bass snare, right? Bass and bass snare. And then after that, bass and bass snare and bass bass. So bass and bass snare and bass bass. Okay, doing it again. Bass and bass snare and bass bass. Now after that, you're going to do bass and hi-hat again. Now this is where really remembering that your hi-hat is like a metronome, it never changes. It's very, very important. Okay, so you don't want to rush that last hit. So it's 1 and a 2 and a 3 and 4, like that. So bass and bass snare and bass bass, bass snare. I'd say get that down first. Bass and bass snare and bass bass, bass snare. Bass and bass snare and bass bass, bass snare. And once you can get that, starting on the snare where we left off, we're going to go, let's see. We're going to go snare, bass, and bass, bass. That's the rest of it. Snare, bass, and that's bass by itself, hi-hat by itself. So snare, bass, and bass, bass. And on the last two basses, the first bass is by itself, the second bass is with hi-hat. So it's bass, and then bass and hi-hat together, both of them, right? So we got snare, bass, and bass, bass. So, putting all that together, we got this. Right? Or if you need to take the extra basses out, then we got this. Okay. All right. Now you're going to do that all the way exactly like that until it gets to the section. It's at about 50 seconds into the song where the snare changes, right? The sound of the snare changes. He uses a different snare, or he's using a synthesizer or something, and then he uses the main snare. So whatever he's doing to get that different sound, that's where you're going to play this to, all the way to there, and that's about 50-ish seconds in the song. All right, guys, and that goes over the beginning section to What I Got by Sublime. So I hope this was very, very fun and you enjoyed this video. If you have any thoughts or questions, feel free to comment below or reach out to me at jeremy@e7musicschool.com. I'd love to hear from you, and if you need any additional help, I'm always here to help you. Please do be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and be sure to have fun, stay awesome, and rock on. Later, guys.